The stars outside the viewing port of Proxima Station seemed cold and distant to Ambassador Daniel Green as he reviewed the documents one more time. 5 years since first contact, and humanity was still being treated like children who might break something valuable if left unsupervised. Daniel sighed and ran a hand through his short brown hair. The station's artificial gravity felt slightly heavier than Earth's, just enough to make his shoulders slump a little more than usual. Or maybe that was just the weight of representing humanity to 17 alien species who looked at Earth like it was a bomb about to go off. "Ambassador Green," said a voice from the doorway. "May I enter?" Daniel looked up to see the tall, slender form of Zorlak. The Aldebian diplomat's blue-gray skin caught the light as he ducked his elongated head to enter the human-sized doorway. "Of course, Zorlak. And please, I've told you before, call me Daniel." The alien nodded, a gesture he had adopted from humans. "Daniel, then. I bring news that troubles me." Zorlak moved to the window, his four-fingered hand resting against the transparent material. "The classification committee has submitted their final report on Earth." Daniel's heart sank. He'd been waiting for this report for months. "And?" "Category 3 developing species," Zorlak said, his voice dropping lower, "with all standard restrictions." "Category 3? Daniel stood up, anger flaring. "That's absurd. Earth has achieved faster-than-light travel independently. We've terraformed Mars. We're expanding the settlements on Europa. How can they classify us as Category 3? Zorlak turned, his large eyes blinking slowly. The official reasoning cites cultural instability and military aggressiveness. Daniel paced the small office. Category 3 meant severe limitations on technology sharing. It meant Earth could establish no more than 3 off-world colonies in the next 100 years. It meant humanity would be confined to their tiny corner of the galaxy while other species expanded and claimed resources. "This isn't right, Zorlak. You know it isn't." The Aldebian looked around cautiously before stepping closer. "What I'm about to tell you breaks several council protocols," he whispered. "But I believe in fairness above all else." Daniel stopped pacing and met Zorlak's gaze. "The data used to classify Earth was deliberately selected to present your species in the worst possible light. Several members of the committee, particularly representatives from the Founding Five, submitted only reports of your wars, environmental damage, and social conflicts. They cherry-picked the evidence," Daniel said flatly. "Yes," Zorlak confirmed. "More concerning is why. The private discussions among the senior council members suggest they fear humanity's rate of advancement. Your species achieved in centuries what took most of us millennia." Daniel felt a chill. "They're afraid of us?" "They fear what you might become," Zorlak corrected. "The Tyranny took 50,000 years to develop the quantum drive. Humans did it in less than 300 years since your Industrial Revolution. Such rapid advancement is unsettling to the older species." Daniel walked to his desk and picked up his datapad. "The Earth delegation arrives tomorrow for the Galactic Summit. They're bringing our 50-year expansion proposal." "What does it entail?" Zorlak asked. 15 colony worlds, a defensive fleet, research outposts in several sectors." Daniel looked up. "All of which apparently violates our new Category 3 classification by about 500%. Zorlak's skin paled slightly. "That will not be received well." Back on Earth, in the gleaming NASA headquarters building in Houston, Director Samantha Reeves studied the holographic display of the Centauri system. Her finger traced the orbit of a particularly promising planet. Eden, they were calling it. Perfect gravity, abundant water, suitable for terraforming with minimal adjustment. "Colony site number 12, she said, marking it with a tap. "Time to development readiness from initial landing approximately 8 years. General Gregory Martin nodded, his weathered face serious under salt and pepper hair. "The military protection requirements for 12 colonies will stretch our current fleet projections. We'll need at least 30 more ships than currently planned." Samantha turned to face him, her dark eyes sharp. "Can we do it?" "If the Council approves the technology sharing we've requested, absolutely. Their propulsion systems are far more efficient than ours, and their shield technology would solve our radiation exposure problems instantly." Samantha walked to the Window overlooking the massive shipyard where the first true interstellar colony ships were under construction. The enormous vessels looked like gleaming silver whales, their hulls reflecting the Texas sunlight. "And if they don't approve?" she asked quietly. Greg's expression hardened. "Then we do it ourselves, the hard way. It'll take longer, cost more, in resources and possibly lives. But humanity doesn't wait for permission to grow." The door to the conference room slid open and Dr. Alan Morris entered. The scientist's excitement was visible as he practically bounced into the room. "The test results from the Jupiter station are in," he announced, his eyes bright behind round glasses. "The matter-energy conversion prototype achieved 82% efficiency." Samantha's eyes widened. "That's 20 years ahead of our projected timeline." "Precisely," Alan said with a grin. "If this trend continues with the other technologies in development, we might need to revise our 50-year plan to 30. Gregory whistled low. "Does the president know about this breakthrough?" "She'll be briefed before departure," Samantha confirmed. "The delegation leaves for Proxima Station in 6 hours. Daniel stood in the massive docking bay of Proxima Station, watching as the Earth diplomatic vessel maneuvered into its berth. The sleek ship named Unity represented the best of human engineering, impressive but noticeably less advanced than the alien vessels nearby. A group of council representatives gathered around him, their diverse forms creating a living display of galactic biodiversity. Some floated in atmosphere tanks, others stood on mechanical limbs, and a few existed as energy patterns within containment fields. "I hope your species is prepared to receive the council's wisdom," said High Counselor Vreen. The Tyranni's voice translated through Daniel's earpiece with a distinctly condescending tone. "The classification system exists to guide developing species toward stable growth." Daniel forced a diplomatic smile. "Earth greatly values the Council's experience, High Counselor. I'm sure our proposal will demonstrate our commitment to responsible expansion." The Tyranni's 4 eyes blinked in sequence, a sign of skepticism in their species. "We shall see." The Unity's docking procedure completed, and the airlock cycled open. President Nancy Wilson emerged first, her gray suit crisp and professional, her posture straight despite her 60 years of age. Behind her came Samantha Reeves, General Martin, and Dr. Morris. Daniel stepped forward. "Madam President, welcome to Proxima Station. May I present High Counselor Vreen of the Tyranni Empire, current head of the Galactic Council, President Wilson." Extended her hand in the human gesture of greeting. "High Counselor, humanity is honored to join the galactic community. We look forward to a productive summit." The Tyranni ignored the outstretched hand. "Your species has much to learn about galactic protocols, President Wilson. The Council chamber is prepared for your presentation in 3 hours. I suggest your delegation use that time to review the Classification Committee's findings." As the alien representatives moved away, Daniel leaned closer to the president. "Madam President, we need to talk urgently. The situation isn't what we expected." Nancy Wilson's eyes narrowed slightly, but her expression remained pleasant for any watching. "Aliens. How bad?" Category 3 classification. 3 colonies maximum per century. Minimal technology sharing. The president's smile didn't waver, but her voice dropped to a whisper. "Then it's fortunate we came prepared for resistance, isn't it?" In that moment, Daniel realized the Earth delegation knew something he didn't. And whatever it was about to make the Galactic Council very, very nervous. The council chamber of Proxima Station was a marvel of alien architecture. The circular room rose in tiers, with 17 sections representing each member species. At the center stood a platform where speakers would present, surrounded by a moat of softly glowing blue energy that analyzed and translated all languages in real time. President Nancy Wilson stood tall on this platform, flanked by Samantha Reeves, General Gregory Martin, and Dr. Alan Morris. Ambassador Daniel Green sat in Earth's small section, one of the lowest tiers reflecting their new status in the galactic community. High Counselor Vreen's voice boomed across the chamber. "The Council recognizes Earth's delegation. You may present your proposed development plan." Be aware that as a Category 3 developing species, certain limitations apply to all Earth activities. Nancy nodded politely, but Daniel caught the flash of determination in her eyes. Esteemed council members, she began, Earth thanks you for this opportunity. Before we present our expansion proposals, Dr. Morris will outline our current technological development path. Dr. Morris stepped forward, adjusting his glasses. His excitement was barely contained as he activated a holographic display. Our technological roadmap focuses on 3 key areas, he explained, pointing to the glowing diagram. First, improvements to our faster-than-light drive systems. Our current models achieve 12 light-years per day. Our next generation, already in prototype stage, will reach 50. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Daniel noticed several council members leaning forward, their various eyes and sensory organs fixed on the human scientist. Second, Morris continued, seemingly oblivious to the reaction. Matter-energy conversion technology. Our Jupiter station recently achieved 82% efficiency in converting raw materials to usable energy and back again. Now the murmurs grew louder. A Palaxian representative stood up, their crystalline form catching the light. That technology typically requires at least 2,000 years of scientific development, they stated. Your species has existed for less than 100,000 years, Dr. Morris blinked in surprise. We've been working on the theoretical aspects since the early 21st century. It's a natural progression from our understanding of quantum mechanics. The Palaxian sat down, their crystal body flashing colors that Daniel recognized as shock and disbelief. Our third focus, Morris said, continuing undeterred, is gravitational manipulation for both propulsion and terraforming purposes. At this, High Counselor Vreen raised a limb. These technologies are far beyond appropriate development levels for a Category 3 species. The Council will need to review Earth's access to these research areas. President Wilson stepped forward, again. With respect, High Counselor, these technologies were developed independently by Earth scientists, without any Council assistance. They fall outside your regulatory framework. Vreen's 4 eyes blinked in sequence again. Continue with your presentation, but be advised that the Classification Committee will reassess Earth's technological restrictions immediately. Nancy nodded to Samantha Reeves, who took center stage. The NASA director activated a new holographic display showing the Milky Way galaxy with several highlighted regions. Earth's 50-year expansion plan is ambitious but necessary, Samantha explained. Due to population growth and resource requirements, we've identified 15 primary colony worlds for immediate development. The chamber erupted in noise. Various species communicated their shock through sounds, colors, and electromagnetic pulses. High Counselor Vreen slammed a ceremonial staff against the floor, restoring order. 15 colonies? Vreen's voice was sharp with disbelief. Your classification permits 3 colonies per century, not 15 in 50 years. President Wilson stepped forward. With due respect, High Counselor, Earth cannot accept such limitations. Our population will reach 11 billion within 20 years. We require room to expand. Your requirements do not override Council doctrine, Vreen replied coldly. This proposal is dangerously aggressive. General Martin moved to stand beside the President. Aggressive? We're talking about peaceful settlement of uninhabited worlds. None of our target planets fall within claimed territories. Samantha continued, her voice steady despite the tension. Additionally, we've already surveyed 30 potential colony worlds beyond the initial 15. Our shipbuilding capacity will allow us to reach all of them within 20 years. The council chamber descended into chaos. Several representatives rose from their seats, shouting demands for immediate sanctions against Earth. Others called for a complete reassessment of human capabilities. Daniel watched in growing alarm as the situation spiraled out of control. He caught President Wilson's eye across the chamber, but instead of concern, he saw only calm determination on her face. She had expected this reaction. High Counselor Vreen finally restored order after nearly 5 minutes of uproar. This session is temporarily adjourned, the Tyranny announced. The Inner Council will convene immediately to discuss this unprecedented situation. The Earth delegation will be escorted to their quarters and remain there until summoned. As uniformed security, officers approached the central platform. Daniel stood up from his seat. High Counselor, as Earth's ambassador, I formally request to join the inter-council discussions as is my right. Your request is denied, Vreen replied immediately. This is a matter of galactic security. In a secured chamber deep within Proxima Station, 7 representatives of the oldest council species sat around a black table. No recording devices were permitted here, where the true governance of the galaxy took place. Vreen activated a holographic display showing various reports. On humanity, the danger is greater than we anticipated, the Torani stated flatly. At their current rate of advancement, humans could match our technology within a century. Xarix, the ancient and rarely seen representative of the Dorn Collective, spoke in a whispering voice. We have seen this pattern before. Species that advance too quickly inevitably self-destruct or become conquerors. Their history is filled with conflict, added Mulan of the Setian Alliance, her tentacles moving in patterns of concern. They find new ways to kill each other with disturbing regularity. Yet they also create art of profound beauty and show remarkable compassion, countered Calyx, the Prothean observer. They ended their practice of slavery. They developed medical care for all. They value individual rights. Irrelevant, Vreen dismissed. The pattern is clear. Any species that develops faster than light travel before establishing global unity poses a danger to galactic stability. The humans have already built warships. They call them defensive vessels, Calyx noted. A distinction without difference, Xarix whispered. The containment protocols have proven effective 3 times before. They will work again. Vreen looked around the table. We are in agreement then? Earth must be contained for its own good. And the safety of the galaxy? 6 of the 7 representatives indicated their assent. Only Calyx hesitated. They will resist, the Prothean warned. Unlike the Bentari or the Zorla, humans have a unique psychological resistance to external control. They will have no choice, Vreen replied. The automated defense platforms can be deployed within 30 days, establishing a quarantine around their entire system. They can develop as they wish within their own space, but they will not be permitted to spread their chaos throughout the Mao galaxy. In the Earth delegation's quarters, tension filled the air. 2 security officers stood outside their door, supposedly for their protection. This is outrageous, General Martin growled, pacing the room. They're treating us like criminals, for having ambition. President Wilson sat calmly, watching Dr. Morris work on a small device he had pulled from his pocket. Did they detect it? She asked quietly. Morris shook his head. No. Their scanners identified it as a standard health monitor. His fingers moved quickly over the device. I'm in their information network. It's fascinating. The architecture is unlike anything I've seen, but the principles are universal. Samantha joined him, looking over his shoulder. What can you access? Almost everything, Morris replied, his eyes wide with excitement. Their security is focused on preventing physical intrusion, not digital. They never expected a category, 3 species to breach their systems. He looked up suddenly. I found the classification reports on Earth. We were right. They deliberately misclassified us. Find out what else they're hiding, President Wilson instructed. Particularly anything about containment procedures for problematic species. As Morris worked, General Martin moved closer to the president. Should I activate the contingency? He asked in a low voice. Nancy Wilson looked at the faces of her team, then at the door where their alien guards stood. Her expression hardened, with resolve. Not yet, she said, but get ready. I suspect we'll need it soon enough. Ambassador Daniel Green had never felt so alone. After the council session had ended in chaos, he'd been separated from Earth's delegation and escorted back to his office. 2 Proxima Station security officers stood outside his door, their scaled bodies blocking the only exit. This isn't protection, Daniel muttered to himself. It's detention. He paced the small room, mind racing. 5 years of diplomatic work was falling apart before his eyes. He needed to contact the Earth delegation, find out what President Wilson's plan was, but his official communication channels were being monitored for security purposes. Essentially, blocked. A soft chime from his desk made him turn. The small communication panel was flashing, indicating an incoming message on a private channel. Daniel hurried over and activated it. Zorlak's face appeared on the screen. The Aldebian looked worried, his blue-gray skin darker than usual with stress. "Daniel, I cannot talk long," Zorlak whispered. "The station is in lockdown. All non-council. Communications are being monitored." "What's happening, Zorlak? Why is the council reacting this way to our expansion plans?" "It is worse than I feared," the alien replied. "The Inner Council has convened. They are discussing implementing containment procedures for Earth." "Containment procedures?" Daniel felt cold dread spreading through his chest. "What does that mean?" "It has only happened 3 times in Council history," Zorlak explained, glancing nervously over his shoulder. "Species that develop too quickly, especially those with a history of conflict, are sometimes restricted to their home systems." "Restricted? How?" "Automated defense platforms. Hundreds of them forming a barrier around your entire solar system. Any ship attempting to leave would be destroyed." Daniel's blood ran cold. "That's not containment. That's imprisonment." "The Council would call it protection, for the galaxy and for humanity itself." Zorlak's large eyes blinked rapidly. "Daniel, there is something else you must know. The Council structure is not what it appears. The 17 member species do not have equal say." "What do you mean?" "The 5 oldest species, the founding 5, hold all real power. The rest of us are junior partners at best, servants at worst. They have been manipulating developing species for millennia, deliberately slowing advancement to maintain their power balance." Daniel sank into his chair. "That's why Earth was classified as Category 3. To keep us contained, controllable." "Precisely," Zorlak nodded. "I must go before they trace this communication. Be cautious, Daniel. The founding 5 will not easily surrender their control of galactic development." The screen went dark, leaving Daniel alone with this disturbing new knowledge. In the Earth delegation's quarters, Dr. Morris was deep in the Proxima Station's information systems. His fingers flew across the small device, his eyes wide behind his glasses. "This is incredible," he whispered to Samantha, who watched over his shoulder. "They have records going back over 50,000 years. Detailed files on hundreds of species, many of which never achieved interstellar travel." "Focus, Alan," Samantha reminded him. "We need information on these containment procedures." Morris nodded and adjusted his search parameters. After a moment, his expression darkened. "I found them. The Bentari, the Zorla, and the Kresh. All species that were advancing too quickly for the Council's comfort. All placed under protective quarantine until they could mature responsibly." "And what happened to them?" asked President Wilson, who had been listening quietly. Morris looked up, his face grim. "The Bentari eventually accepted Council oversight after 3 centuries of isolation. They're now a Category 2 species with limited expansion rights. The Zorla attempted to break the quarantine and their ships were destroyed. They regressed technologically and now barely leave their planet's surface. The Kresh," he paused, swallowing hard. "The Kresh apparently developed biological weapons to fight the containment. Their planet suffered a tragic accident that rendered it uninhabitable." General Martin's face hardened. "So the Council doesn't just contain species, they eliminate threats." "We need to warn Earth," President Wilson said firmly. "If the Council decides we're too dangerous to contain..." General Martin nodded grimly and reached into his jacket, pulling out a small black device. "I brought a quantum communicator. It can bypass their monitoring systems, but will only get one message before they detect and block the frequency." "President." Wilson nodded. "Do it." Martin activated the device and spoke quickly. "Protocol safeguard. Council hostile. Prepare Artemis." He had barely finished speaking when the device beeped once and went dark. "Message sent," Martin confirmed. "Now we wait." "They'll have detected that transmission," Samantha warned. "We won't have long to wait." As if on cue, the door to their quarters slid open. 4 security officers entered, their weapons not drawn, but clearly visible. "The Council requests your presence," the lead officer stated flatly. "Immediately." Vice President Kyle Bennett sat in the Oval Office, his face ashen as he replayed the brief message from General Martin. Around the table sat the Joint Chiefs of Staff, the Secretary of Defense, and the Director of Intelligence. "Protocol safeguard," Bennett repeated. "That confirms the Council is hostile to our interests. We need to activate Artemis." Defense Secretary Frank Rivera nodded grimly. "Artemis has been ready since first contact. We hoped we'd never need it." "So did I," Bennett replied. He placed his palm on the secure terminal built into the desk. After a retinal scan confirmed his identity, he spoke clearly. "Activate protocol. Artemis authorization Bennett Echo Delta 793. Around the Earth, hidden facilities hummed to life. In underground bunkers beneath ocean floors, and in concealed orbital stations, systems that officially did not exist began powering up. On a classified base beneath the Marianas Trench, Admiral Olivia Grant received the alert on her secure terminal. She immediately stood and addressed the officers in the command center. "Artemis is active. This is not a drill." Her voice was calm, but commanding. "All ships, prepare for immediate deployment. Operation Reveal begins in 30 minutes. Across the Pacific, Atlantic, and Indian Oceans, massive underwater doors slid open. Ships that had never appeared on any official record began rising from the depths. In the asteroid belt, seemingly abandoned mining stations transformed as hidden hangar doors opened, revealing sleek warships. The true extent of Earth's military preparation was finally being revealed. Back on Proxima Station, Daniel had been summoned to join the Earth delegation for what High Counselor Vreen called a matter of grave importance. As he entered the council chamber, he saw President Wilson and her team standing on the central platform, surrounded by council security. The entire council was present, their faces and sensory appendages showing various signs of anger, fear, and confusion. High Counselor Vreen stood at the highest tier, 4 eyes fixed on the humans below. "Earth delegation, the Council has determined that your species represents a potential destabilizing influence on galactic peace. Therefore, until your civilization demonstrates greater maturity, you will be placed under protective oversight." "Meaning, what exactly?" President Wilson asked, her voice steady. "All Earth vessels will be restricted to your home system. All expansion plans will be frozen for a minimum of 50 years. A Council observation team will monitor your technological development to ensure it proceeds along appropriate lines." Vreen's voice carried no room for negotiation. Daniel stepped forward to stand beside President Wilson. "High Counselor, as Earth's ambassador, I must inform you that these terms are unacceptable. We have discovered the truth about the Council's manipulation of developing species. We know about the Bentari, the Zorla, and the Kresh." Murmurs spread through the chamber as many of the junior council members reacted with surprise. Clearly, not all species were aware of these past events. Furthermore, Daniel continued, gaining confidence, "We have evidence that Earth was deliberately misclassified to restrict our development. This action violates the Council's own founding charter, which guarantees fair treatment to all intelligent species." High Counselor Vreen's voice thundered across the chamber. "You exceed your authority, Ambassador." The Founding Five have maintained peace for 50,000 years through careful management of technological proliferation. Your species is barely out of its infancy, yet you presume to challenge our wisdom? President Wilson took a step forward. Her eyes locked on Vreen. "We do not challenge your wisdom, High Counselor. We challenge your right to decide humanity's future." She turned to face the entire council. "Earth will not accept imprisonment in our own solar system. We will not allow our development to be stunted by fear." "You have no choice," Vreen replied, coldly. "The containment procedures will be implemented immediately." President Wilson straightened her back and looked directly at the High Counselor. Then she reached into her pocket and pulled out a small device similar to the one General Martin had used earlier. "Actually," she said calmly, "we do have a choice." She pressed a button on the device and spoke a single phrase. Show them. Throughout the galaxy, on the edges of countless star systems, space rippled and folded. Where there had been nothing a moment before, hundreds of ships appeared. Sleek silver vessels with the blue and green Earth emblem emblazoned on their hulls materialized near key council installations, military outposts, and trading hubs. On Proxima Station, the council chamber's main view screen activated without command. The face of Admiral Olivia Grant appeared, her expression calm but determined, her uniform crisp and authoritative. "This is Admiral Grant of the Earth Defense Fleet," she announced. "Our vessels have taken up positions near multiple council facilities throughout the galaxy. We are not here to threaten, but to demonstrate that humanity will not accept imprisonment in our home system." The council chamber erupted in chaos. Species of all forms expressed shock, outrage, and fear in their various ways. High Counselor Vreen's voice cut through the noise. "This is an act of war," the Tyranni leader shouted. "You have concealed military capabilities from the council." President Wilson smiled thinly. "Just as the council concealed its true power. Structure from us, High Counselor? We simply took reasonable precautions." Daniel looked at the screen in amazement. He had no idea Earth possessed such capabilities. The ships looked far more advanced than any human vessel he had seen before. "How is this possible?" he whispered to Samantha Reeves, who stood beside him. "Project Artemis," she replied quietly. "Started the day after first contact. We hoped we'd find friends among the stars, but we prepared for the alternative." On the screen, Admiral Grant continued, "We have been monitoring council communications for 3 years. We know about the containment procedures used against the Bentari, the Zorla, and the Kresh. We know about the true power of the Founding Five. And now, so does every species in the galaxy." The view screen split into multiple sections, showing the Admiral's broadcast playing on planets and stations throughout council space. The secret was out. High Counselor Vreen raised a hand, and the security officers around the Earth delegation raised their weapons. "This treachery will not stand. Your ships are impressive, but the Council's forces outnumber you hundreds to one." "True," President Wilson acknowledged. "But are you willing to start a galactic war? Especially when your own member species are just learning how they've been manipulated for millennia?" As if on cue, several council representatives stood from their seats. The Palaxian crystalline form glittered with angry colors. "Is this true, Vreen? Have we been controlled all this time?" "These are matters beyond your concern," Vreen snapped. "I believe they are precisely our concern," said another representative, the plant-like Verdani. "If the Founding Five have been suppressing advancement, that violates our membership agreement." Daniel realized the moment had come to push their advantage. He stepped forward onto the central platform. "Honored representatives," he called out, his voice strong. "Earth does not desire conflict. We wish only to take our rightful place among the stars to explore and build and grow. But we cannot do so under unjust restrictions." He gestured to Dr. Morris, who projected data from his device onto the chamber's display systems. "These records, taken from your own archives, show how the Founding Five have systematically classified developing species to restrict their growth, how technologies have been hidden rather than shared, how species that advance too quickly are contained or worse." The chamber grew quiet as the evidence scrolled across the screens. Daniel could see the impact on the junior council members as they realized the extent of their manipulation. Zorlak stood from his seat. "I move for an immediate suspension of the Founding Five's executive authority pending a full investigation." "Seconded," said the Verdani representative. "High Counselor." Vreen's voice cut through the chamber like a blade. "This is sedition. The Founding Compact gives us emergency powers in times of crisis." The Tyranni turned to address hidden systems in the ceiling. "Station Control. Initiate Defense Protocol Omega. Target Earth vessels and diplomats." The chamber's lights flickered, but nothing else happened. Dr. Morris smiled slightly and held up his small device. "I'm afraid your defense systems are temporarily offline, High Counselor. A simple security vulnerability, one that any Category 3 species shouldn't have been able to find according to your classification." 3 of the Founding Five representatives rose from their seats. The Dorn Collective's representative, Zarix, spoke in a whisper that somehow carried throughout the chamber. "This insult will not stand. Our fleets are already mobilizing. The humans have overplayed their hand." President Wilson looked unconcerned. "Have we? Admiral Grant, please show them." Formation Beta. On the view screen, the view shifted to deep space where hundreds more Earthships decloaked, revealing a defensive line far larger than anyone had imagined possible. "How?" Vreen demanded. "Your industrial capacity cannot support this fleet." "General," Martin stepped forward. "Your assessment was based on what we allowed you to see, High Counselor. Earth unified its military and scientific resources the moment we learned we weren't alone in the universe. We've been building in secret for 5 years," Samantha Reeves added. "And we've been developing technologies independently for decades. Before that, what you see here is just the first wave of our defensive capability." The chamber fell silent as the reality of the situation became clear. The Founding Five had lost control of the narrative, and with it, their unquestioned authority. Zorlak broke the silence. "I propose an emergency session of all Council species, without the Founding Five present, to establish new governance protocols." Voices rose in agreement across the chamber. Species that had been quiet for centuries found their courage in this moment of revelation. Vreen looked around, seeing support crumbling. "You cannot, we can and we will," interrupted the Verdani representative. "The compact has been broken by your deception." Daniel watched as the balance of power shifted before his eyes. He turned to President Wilson. "What happens now?" She smiled. "Now we negotiate, as equals." 6 months later, Daniel Green stood in a new council chamber on the recently constructed Unity Station. Around him, representatives from 28 species, the original 17 council members plus 11 formerly restricted species, prepared to sign the new Galactic Charter. As head of the Committee for Species Development, Daniel had spent months working with these representatives to draft a document based on cooperation rather than control. The new charter guaranteed technological sharing, fair classification, and independent development rights for all intelligent species. President Wilson stood beside him, watching the proceedings with satisfaction. "You've done remarkable work, Ambassador." "We all have," Daniel replied. "But there's still so much to do. Thousands of developing species need reassessment. The Bentari quarantine must be lifted. The Zorla need technological assistance to rebuild what they lost." "One step at a time," Wilson said. "Earth's colony ships are already departing for the first 5 worlds. The joint research initiatives with the Aldebaran and Verdani scientists are showing promising results. We're moving forward." Across the chamber, Zorlak approached them. "The vote is unanimous," the Aldebaran announced. "The new charter will be ratified today." "And the Founding Five?" Daniel asked. "They have accepted reduced status and the supervision requirements," Zorlak replied, "though not happily." President Wilson nodded. "They'll adjust. All species can, given time and incentive." As the signing ceremony began, Daniel reflected on how quickly everything had changed. 5 years from first contact to a complete reformation of galactic governance. It was unprecedented, but then so was humanity. On the main view screen, live feeds showed Earth's colony ships departing the solar system, their massive engines glowing blue against the darkness of space. They carried not just humans, but representatives from a dozen species, all working together in the joint colonization program that had become the symbol of the new galactic order. The Palaxian representative glittered beside Daniel. "Your species has accomplished in 6 months what many of us dreamed of for centuries. You have broken chains we did not even know we wore." "We didn't do it alone," Daniel said. "We just provided the catalyst." As the new charter was formally activated, systems throughout the galaxy updated. The restrictive classification system was replaced with a cooperative development framework. The automated defense platforms that had imprisoned species were reprogrammed as navigation aids and emergency response units. Earth, once categorized as a restricted Category 3 developing species, now stood as a founding member of the new galactic alliance, not rulers but partners in a more equitable future. "You know," President Wilson said quietly to Daniel as they watched the celebration around them. The council wasn't entirely wrong to be nervous about our plans. How so? Daniel asked. She smiled. We really did change everything. Daniel looked out at the stars visible through the station's viewing port, the same stars that had seemed so cold and distant when this journey began. For the better, he replied. For everyone.